All right, let's do this. You're Next, 2011. This movie, it's got a certain something, a cult following for sure. And you, our listener, you get it. You sent us some awesome stuff on this film.
Yeah. You're right. It's got a lot more going on than just like your typical scary movie stuff.
Oh, yeah. So we're going deep. We're going to see what makes You're Next so special, so different.
Definitely. It takes what we think we know about, home invasion movies.
Yeah.
Takes it, twists it, surprises you.
Totally. It's got a final girl, but, well, she's not exactly helpless. We've got this family, all perpent on the surface, but underneath, dark secrets. It's intense, keeps you hooked.
Right. You think you've got it figured out, but You're Next keeps you guessing.
So, quick recap for anyone who hasn't seen it. We meet the Davison family. They're rich, celebrating their anniversary. Big mansion, secluded. Sounds nice, right?
You'd think.
Yeah.
Parties crash, though.
Yeah.
By masked attackers.
Yeah.
Turns into a total nightmare. Survival is the name of the game now.
It's terrifying. But then we meet Erin. She's the girlfriend, played by Sharni Vincent, who's fantastic. And that's when everything changes.
Oh, yeah, Erin. She's not just some quiet girlfriend along for the ride. She's got a whole other side, a hidden side.
Exactly. She's not just surviving, she's fighting back. Like, seriously fighting. You start to wonder about her past. Where'd she learn to do that?
It's a great twist on the final girl idea,
Yeah.
Strong female characters in horror. That's where You're Next really shines, I think.
She's not a damsel in distress, not at all. She's setting traps, using anything she can as a weapon. It's chilling how good she is at turning the tables on those attackers.
And we got to ask why, right? Like, what made her this way? The movie makes you think about what you expect from women in horror. Erin just blows all those expectations away, makes it really unpredictable.
For sure. Speaking of unpredictable, let's talk about those masks, the attackers. A lamb, a tiger, a fox. Classic horror, but You're Next uses those masks differently.
Absolutely. They're not like representing some demon or supernatural force. What's scary is that they show how cold, how calculated the attackers are. It's a human threat. Even more disturbing.
Yeah, almost like it's hinting at something darker within the family itself. Which I guess leads us to the greed and betrayal in the film. This attack, it's not random. There's a reason, a motive.
Exactly. The more we learn, the more we see. This home invasion is planned by the family. They want the inheritance. Talk about messed up. Makes you question every character. Who to trust.
Right. You're watching this family implode. It's like a chess game, but the stakes are life and death.
And the way the director, Adam Wingard, uses the camera. Tight shots. You feel trapped. The lighting, so dark, it adds to that sense of claustrophobia, like you're right there in that mansion with them.
Totally. The walls are closing in, secrets coming out, people dying. It's masterful how he builds that suspense. The dread just builds and builds.
And then he throws in those dark humor moments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, didn't expect that. But it works. It breaks up all that tension without, like, ruining the scares.
Yeah, totally. Like a little breather before things get crazy again. What about you? Any favorite darkly comedic bits? I always think of that blender scene. So brutal, but also kind of funny.
Oh, yeah. That one gets me every time, the way it's shot. So sudden, you're shocked, but you also can't help but, I don't know, it's the perfect mix of horror and humor, just like the whole movie, really.
Right. It's like the filmmakers are in on the joke, but they're still taking the horror seriously. Which brings me to something else I love. The soundtrack.
Oh, man, the music. It's so unexpected, We've got this brutal home invasion and then this retro score, like something out of a 70s thriller or something.
I know. It's so cool, that contrast. Modern violence, old school vibes.
It's brilliant. It makes the whole atmosphere so unsettling. Even when things are quiet, you're like waiting for the other shoe to drop. The music keeps you on edge the whole time.
Totally agree. It's like the music is another character adding to the whole suspenseful vibe.
For sure. And that unpredictability is key, right? You're constantly trying to figure out what's going to happen next. What's the twist?
Okay, so we've covered the plot, the characters, the directing, the music. But what about the bigger picture? Like what does Your Next say about family, about society, about horror movies in general?
Now we're getting to the good stuff. I mean, yeah, it plays on that fear we all have, right? Someone breaking into our homes, that violation. But it's also saying, maybe the scariest monsters are closer than we think.
Ooh, I like that. The movie is showing us the dark side of human nature, how greed, jealousy, even within a family, people can turn on each other.
Totally. And the fact that it's a family gathering, it twists that idea, family being this safe haven, this source of support. You're Next shows how fragile those bonds can be when money and selfishness get involved.
It's dark, man. But in the middle of all that, we have Erin, our unlikely hero. She's not some trained fighter, just an ordinary person.
Yeah. And that's what makes her so awesome.
Hmm.
She's relatable. We can see ourselves in her. She's got this inner strength, this determination, and we all have that, but it takes something extreme to bring it out.
Right. She shows us that even when things are terrifying, we can fight back. We can protect ourselves and the people we care about.
Yeah. And it's not just surviving, it's about taking control. She's changing the game for women in horror movies.
Right. Forget the damsel in distress. She's smart. She thinks ahead. Her intelligence is just as important as her, fighting skills.
Totally. It's like your next is saying brains can be just as powerful as like brute force, maybe even more so.
I love that. So we've talked about how your next influenced the horror genre. You want to expand on that a little? What makes it so important?
Well, it took the final girl and gave it a makeover. Erin's not passive. She's a force to be reckoned with. She's strategic. And that's inspired a lot of horror movies since then. Strong women taking charge.
She's not just surviving, she's thriving. And that's huge in a genre that hasn't always been so kind to its female characters.
Exactly. She's smart, she's tough, and she uses both to her advantage.
It's awesome. And your next manages to do all this while still being a classic horror movie, right? The masks, the suspense, that isolated location, it plays with the familiar, but it does something new with it.
And that's why we're still talking about it, right? Years later, it still holds up. It's entertaining, but it also makes you think. Makes it a perfect pick for a deep dive.
Absolutely. It's a movie that sticks with you. Makes you wonder, what would I do in that situation? What kind of strength do I have hidden inside? Gets under your skin, makes you eye your family members a little differently, and maybe check if you've got any good weapons lying around, just in case.
One thing that really hit me the second time I watched it, the foreshadowing. It's like subtle clues all over the place, little hints that lead you to the big reveal.
Ooh, I love that stuff. Tell me more. What kind of hints?
Okay, so remember early on, someone mentions Erin's dad, how he was like a survivalist. It's played for laughs, but then, well, we see how Erin handles herself, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, makes you think. They were setting us up the whole time.
Right, like a puzzle. The filmmakers are challenging us to pay attention, put the pieces together.
So clever. And that's what sets your next apart. It's not just some mindless slasher. It's well crafted, It makes you think. Makes you want to watch it again and again.
Absolutely. And that's why we're doing this deep dive, right? It's more than just, here's what happened in the movie. We're digging deeper. Themes, symbolism. It's a rich film.
So true. And the fact that we're still talking about it all these years later, that says something. Your next made an impact. It messed with people's expectations of what a horror movie could be. It even paved the way for a whole new wave of horror, More self-aware, more women kicking ass.
Totally. It started a conversation.
Yeah.
And it leaves you with this question. What would I do if I were in that situation? What kind of strength would I find?
It's a heavy question, right? Makes you face your own fears, but also maybe see a side of yourself you didn't know was there.
Exactly. It's like the movie saying, hey, you're stronger than you think.
Yes. That's a pretty powerful message, especially coming from a horror film.
I love that. So to everyone listening, if you haven't seen Your Next, what are you waiting for? Get on it. And if you have, maybe it's time for a rewatch. See if you catch those little details, those clues. It's a whole new experience.
It really is. And hey, you might just surprise yourself. Tap into that inner badass you never knew you had.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap on this deep dive into Your Next. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, stay curious and don't be afraid to explore those dark corners.